One of the Holy Father's advisors says one theme emerging from the Synod on youth is a little out of left field.
So the synodality has not been formally discussed. It has been, but the whole process has been a synodal process. Therefore, there is a question of how much should we speak of synodality. That's one of the questions we are debating.
Cardinal Oswald Gracious of Mumbai is taking part in the month-long meeting of bishops. Tomorrow, bishops will vote on the final report. Senior EWTN contributor Dr. Matthew Bunson joins us from Rome. Matthew, we just heard Cardinal Gracious use the term synodality. What does this mean, and what does he mean by using it?
Yes, well, this is a term that a number of the Synod Fathers have complained that suddenly came out of nowhere and ended up in the draft document for the final report. So the word synod itself means simply an assembly, but synodality, certainly in this pontificate and in the use of Pope Francis, indicates a journeying together. And for it to appear in the document, a number of Synod Fathers are asking, first, why is it in a document about youth? And second, what are its possible implications? Now, the most benign interpretation of synodality as a kind of journeying together was provided by Cardinal Christoph Schönborn of Austria just today at the Holy See press conference, in which he explained that this journeying together suggests a heightened participation, a greater voice for everyone in the church, especially lay people and young people. Those who look at the word synodality and see possible threats or express concern that it could actually have ramifications for church authority. In other words, sort of flattening out the rightful authority in the church, but also potentially bringing about democratization in the church. In other words, a loss of authority by the bishops and, of course, by the Holy Father himself. So we'll have to see what the bishops themselves decide to do when it comes time to vote on the paragraphs on synodality in this document. But that's just one of a number of potentially contentious issues that they're going to be voting on tomorrow.
Sure. I was just going to say just one of many. Tell me, what are some of the other major issues the bishops are considering right now?
Well, as you can imagine, with a document of about 170 paragraphs, if what we're hearing is correct, there are going to be a lot of issues confronting young people. But a couple of flashpoints have emerged. One, of course, is the clergy sexual abuse crisis. How in-depth and how comprehensive should this final report be in its coverage of that major issue? We've heard a few complaints from bishops from around the world that there's perhaps even an overemphasis on sexual abuse crisis, just given that it may not necessarily be as severe in their parts of the world. We've also had discussions about the formation of conscience, authentic conscience, and what that means for young people. And then, of course, there are the potentially contentious issues of sexual identity, of gender. LGBT apparently is not in the document, but there's still concern about authentic teaching of the church regarding human sexuality.
It's incredible when you think that the bishops have been meeting for nearly 4 weeks. Looking ahead now, what happens in the next few days?
Well, in the next few days, we will see the conclusion to this synod. I spoke with a couple of cardinals and archbishops, and I asked them how it was going and what their message is for the synod, and they all said the same thing. This is too long. But tomorrow, the bishops will hear and see the final report. They will then begin a process of voting paragraph by paragraph. They need a 2/3 vote in order to pass each paragraph. That then is presented to Pope Francis, who it's up to him as to whether he will accept it and what he'll do with it after that. And then come Sunday, we have the final closing Mass that Pope Francis will celebrate. Look for his homily, as is often the case in closing synods under Pope Francis. Probably some pretty sharp words for the participants, and then beginning to lay out his vision for how he wants this final report, but also the work of the synod to be advanced across the universal church for young people. And that's going to be a tall order based on the discussions I've been having with a lot of bishops in attendance here.
Like you say, so many important issues they've been talking about. And yes, of course, we'll be watching to see what Pope Francis has to say at the conclusion of all of this. Dr. Matthew Bunson, EWTN senior contributor, thanks so much.
Great to be with you.